Hello everyone, it is I, Fable, your new best friend, back at it again with whatever it is that I'm back at it again with. So we're learning more about Trench Crusade. We're the dread of the Great Hormon? Hamon? Ugh, I can't read. Yeah, you guys seem to enjoy this, and sadly I sadly ran out of what do you call it? Analog horrors to watch, so I guess I gotta watch this analog horror, even though it's not an analog horror. Also, to those of you that don't know, I love the Black Grail. I wouldn't ever want to join it. I love it in the sense that I like its premise and all the gross parts of it. I want it destroyed though. Like I like the concept of it, but I want to destroy absolutely.
In
Let's
the
get
annals
started.
of the Great War, over the span of 8 centuries, and with a multitude of massive incursions by the forces of hell onto the earthly planes, two mighty hegemons of the Black Grail have risen: Yersinia Rex, Emperor of Pestilence, and
Ooh.
Febris, the rotting bride of Beelzebub. As the hegemons rise in power within the Black Grail, their strain becomes favoured, and Beelzebub feasts upon the decay and pestilence it causes until the Grail seas once again spew forth from the gates of Inferno and flow across the land. In the time of Yersinia, a terrible plague began to break out in settlements and towns around the Levant as the summer began to end. Terrible waves of illness would rise and quickly fall, but not before the sick and infirm, or the too young or the too old, had already succumbed to it.
Oh man.
As the dry, warm season became cold and wet, the plague really took root, and the black grail rose all around the Levant. The buzzing of Beelzebub's flies grew fierce, and any who had survived the sickness became infected with this new terrible affliction. Because the weak had already been picked off, only the strongest hosts were infected with this version of the Black Grail, turned into shuffling, pus filled enemies and mockeries of their former humanity. They marched across the gates all the way to the very walls of the Iron Sultanate of the two horns that pierced the sky. Despite the best efforts of the forces of
Not gonna lie, like I said, I really like the name of the Vile Bride. That sounds so cool to me. I need to make an enemy based off that.
the Sultan, who met the enemy 100 miles out from the walls, they were forced to constantly and slowly retreat,
Oh
losing
man.
great numbers of soldiers, machines of war, and supplies as they did so. Eventually, they had no choice but to retreat inside the walls themselves, and the Black Grail sought to follow them. There, they did crash against it like a wave, led by
Ugh.
Yersinia. Things looked grim for the defenders, as the mighty cannons that launched molten hot metals from the wall rained devastation down on the forces below. Yet still, that molten mass of human and demonic flesh that now formed the might of the Black Grail crashed against the iron wall, probing for any weakness, any misshapen fold in the miraculous structure that would allow it to progress into the heart of the Sultanate and destroy it in Beelzebub's name. Deep within the alchemical laboratories of the House of Wisdom, the alchemists worked without sleep, kept alert and moving via their strongest tinctures and unguents, creating a way to defeat Yersinia. With the beast at their very door, they produced their rarest and strongest alloy, mimicking the very metal of the wall itself. They infused it with impossibly condensed and refined medicines and the very
Ooh.
elements of life and creation that powered their Taquan arts. After nearly 2 months of constant effort and delicate control, their single shot was ready. It was brought to the Scream of the Lion, the single massive cannon that sits directly above the gate of Al Quran, and placed within the mighty weapon. The head of the Department of Artillery Mechanics and Mathematics from the House of Wisdom was given the burden of calculating and firing the shot. When the shot was fired, it flew across the battlefield as if guided by Allah himself, crashing through Yersenia's chest, instantly destroying two of his hearts and badly injuring the third.
Oh, he has three
Without
hearts.
the
Oh
power to hold
shit.
the Black Grail together, it began to dissipate, and 1,000 lions of Jubir and 1,000 brazen bulls stormed forth from the gates, harrying at Yersinia as he tried to retreat towards the gates of Inferno. Even in his weakened state, he inflicted terrible damage on his enemies before they finally brought him down, leaving
Damn.
his decayed and sickly remains to be claimed by the desert sands.
Jesus, strong demons are no joke, huh, guys?
Febris, the rotten bride of Beelzebub's time, was preceded by a wild fever that swept the land, burning people up to the point of madness before turning them into shambling husks that made their way to the gates of Inferno to await the arrival of their master. Eventually, after hundreds of thousands of people had died and made their malign pilgrimage to the gates, did enough power swell to transport her across to the earthly plane. Understanding the signs of what was coming, the Iron Wall had sent delegates to New Antioch, and in deep consideration with the heads of the church, it was decided to send out a paladin, Englir, the Sword of Heaven, to meet whatever new threat was to come through the gates. Such was the arrogance.
Guys, I need to know more about the paladins, but I know we don't have all the information, and it sucks. It's butts, guys. It's butts.
Of Febris that her forces never sought to stop Englir on his journey, instead allowing him to walk through their ranks, although he destroyed great numbers of them with nonchalant swings as he went.
Oh, damn.
He met Febris at the gates just as she broke through, and the two did terrible battle. The Paladin and the Hegemon fought for 17 days and 17 nights before finally inflicting fatal wounds upon each other. Englir died there and then, safe in the knowledge that he had inflicted the most brutal of wounds upon his enemy, and her time to torment the people whose life he gave to protect was almost over. Febris, enraged and aware that she could not return to Beelzebub's defeated, struck out across the desert with what remained of her army. What awaited her was the combined might of the forces of New Antioch, the Trench Pilgrims, and the Iron Sultanate, and cannon fire and acidic and incendiary gases started to rain down upon her army long before it reached the humans that she sought to destroy. The fighting was horrific, as sickness and disease spread in the ranks of the defenders, and it soon became known that even the slightest injury meant likely death as decay took hold. Instead of breaking the soldiers, this seemed to embolden them, and any man who was cut or hurt by the enemy became almost feral in his intent, seemingly willing to fight alone to the heart of the enemy so that he could tear whatever ragged soul Febris possessed from her corpse himself. Eventually, Febris passed from her injuries, inflicted with the very vengeance of God by Englir, and her forces waned and Hell's attempts to once again conquer the earth was over. And so, Beelzebub's rod and decay had given rise to two great demonic hegemons, agents of his terrifying whims that could venture to earth in his place and seek to carry out his plans. Each of them was destroyed, but at an unimaginable cost to the forces of the great tyrant Yahweh, whom the Lord of Flies seeks to overthrow. While facing the Black Grail at any times is a tough task, in the time of Hegemon, it is near impossible to comprehend the horror and difficulty that people faced. With the ascension of a Hegemon, the hideous power of the Black Grail is exalted. As the poison spreads from person to person, does power flow back to Beelzebub. The more lives his creations claim, the greater his influence becomes. Beelzebub grows sleek and fat, and like a magnanimous king, bestows blessings and gifts upon his favored children. Beelzebub's insidious grip over his grail thralls greatly increases. They move with more grace, and the exalted blessings of the grail opens their ruined minds, allowing them to truly witness the rotting glory of the Lord of Flies, and enabling them to understand more complex weaponry. In turn, the nobles that makes up the ranks of the Order of the Fly are given kingly gifts from their mighty liege. Never are the forces of Beelzebub a greater threat than during this time, and they fight fiercely, are tougher to kill, and develop more sickening and terrifying mutations that aid them on the battlefield. They rejoice in this incredible power, and long for battle and the cries of fear that come from their enemies. Full of the ascendant power of the Black Grail, how miserable they become when their Hegemon Lord falls in battle, Each Hegemon is unique, and when slain, it can never be recreated. The ecstasy of their plague nights in the service of the dead ruler sinks into the deepest despair from which there is no escape. For not only is it the end of their master, it is the end of their own time as well. Failure is never tolerated by Beelzebub, and the price of it is steep. Their strain of the Black Grail is shunned by others of their kind, and they are no longer welcome at Ekron, the city of Beelzebub. They are cast out from the Order of the Fly for their failure, and the Hegemon's strain of disease continues spreading and creating thralls, but they are born into a world bereft of their sires, leaving them hopeless and desolate. Without a master, they have no reason for being, and their existence is lightless and empty with no true connection to Beelzebub's demonic glory. The eyes of the Plague Knights continuously weep cold black blood as
Look, I'm gonna be honest. Okay, so I like the sounds of the Plague Knights. It just sounds so cool to me in the worst way possible. But at the same time, I want to destroy them. I want them gone.
They cry for their lost dark paradise that will never be again. The tantalizing dream of a great flood of pestilence that cleanses the earth is lost forever. For they shall never have such connection to any future Hegemon.
Yeah, please
and the inevitable future success of Beelzebub is something that they can never share in nor experience fully. Their mournful wails echo and reverberate through no man's land, a cry of sorrow deeper than any mortal can feel, and agonizing rage of black hatred that no mortal comprehends. They compose mournful paeans to their lost Hegemon, beautiful yet disturbing songs that promise nothing but never-ending death. Such shattered remains of the once mighty legions of the Hegemon take their vengeance on any opponent, regardless of their allegiance, and have been known to throw themselves against other Black Bale warbrands in futile acts of regret, trying to feel pain that would at least momentarily dull their aching feeling of loss. But no such hope exists in their eternal damnation. These small bands that remain after the Hegemons have been defeated are nothing but bitter shadows of the true power of the decayed and the decaying, whispers and echoes of the virulent screams that once tore across the dunes of no man's land in the Levant. These bands, made up of the strains of the fallen Hegemon's once mighty legions, form everlasting funeral processions for their dead masters. The echo of their cries and dirges accompanies their solemn steps, taking them from nowhere to nowhere. Their eyes are forever stained by the foul black tears of the Black Grail, and their skin turns black and sloughs off, hanging in tatters like funeral garb. They seek lost artifacts and broken shards of armor and weapons of their lost liege, and fashion disturbing and rusted jewelry from the remains where the Hegemon's power still lingers beyond the grave. Few things that haunt the no man's land are more dangerous or more ghastly than these corruption-ridden forces of the dark past, the funeral processions that last until time itself is no more.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, no, it's fucking very, very interesting. Like, Jesus. Am I streaming? Is that what's going on? God, I better not be streaming. Anyway, guys, yeah, no, that's freaking horrifying, not gonna lie. It's the fact is that I like the Black Grail. Like I said, I like the Black Grail. The Hegemon sound interesting. I like the name of one of them. Alright, guys, I'm gonna be ending the video here. If this is the kind of stuff you like, please let me know. Oh, I'm just getting type pats, never mind. I thought I was streaming. Jesus. Anyway, sorry about that. If this is the kind of content you like, please let me know. I will be reacting more to the Black Grail because I like them in theory. I guess it's because of the fact that their weird mutations make people. I like body horror. I guess that's literally it. Would I ever deal with it in real life? Hell no. But I like body horror. Anyway, if you like this kind of content, let me know. Guys, this has very important news. I have added some new goals to the Donathon. Let's check it out. Here it is. At 150, well, I already had 150 something, but I'm changing it to 150. if you guys would like me to sing a new song, basically World of Imagination, the one song from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I will sing that. For all I need is $30 more. Link will be in the link will to my Ko-fi will be in the description. Thank you all, love you, bye.